call this meeting to order. I'm Zoe Hoyle, the chairperson of the Urban Forestry Commission. I want to welcome everybody. This is the first meeting we've had since before Hurricane Helene, and I'd like to remind everybody that I have only facilitated one of these meetings because I became the chairperson right before the hurricane. So I want to first do the roll call, and again, I'm Zoe Hoyle, the chair.
Christy Fiore, Urban Forestry Commission.
AJ Hardy, Asheville Greenworks, and Urban Forestry Commission.
Tim Roney, City Council to Liaison to the Urban Forestry Commission.
Chardon Dietrich, Urban Forestry Commission.
Carly Gillingham, Assistant City Attorney.
Steph Monsendahl, Planning and Urban Design Director for the City of Asheville.
Keith Aiken, Urban Forester, Planning and Urban Design.
And I'll just note that we have a lot of other staff resources. Can you raise your hand if you're on city staff? And we have another city council person in the room today. Maggie Ullman, thank you very much.
Any other interested publics? No?
Raise your
Okay.
hand.
So the first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from September 3rd, 2024. Do we have those available to see?
They are linked on your agenda.
1 minute to read through the minutes. All in favor of approving the minutes of September 3rd, 2024?
Point of order. Would you mind calling for a motion in a second to approve?
Sorry. I call for a motion to approve the minutes of September 3rd,
I move.
2024.
I move.
I'll second.
All in favor? Do we need to do a roll call?
You're in person, so you can just vote regular style.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So the second item on the agenda is to receive the memo regarding Chapter 20 and Chapter 2 proposed amendments. I don't know that everyone has had the opportunity to read the memo. So again, you can press the link to read the memo. Should I read the summary update on the memo? Summary update. The purpose of this memo is to provide an update to UFC members on the pathway forward for this project, which is the update on Chapter 20 and Chapter 2 amendments. In summary, staff is pausing further work on Chapter 20 until recommendations from the Urban Forestry Master Plan process, which will include recommendations that can result in code changes, have been completed and publicly reviewed, and there has been significant development of the timeline, budget, and scope of the upcoming Resilient Codes and Standards project, also known as the UDO update. Better understand when the two items above may be fulfilled, staff notes that the Urban Forestry Master Plan is anticipated to be completed by December 2026, and that the hiring process for a contractor to perform the Codes and Standards project is anticipated to occur. Staff is also pausing work on Chapter 2 until such time that the City Council provides any further direction regarding the structure or operation of all advisory boards and commissions. Is there any discussion on this memo?
I would like more information on why the really simple change in administrative Chapter 2 has been paused. Multiple times said it would be a quick fit.
So we've been getting a lot of questions from a variety of on-demand or as-needed boards wanting to change their ordinances. And it has been determined at this time that no department directors are going to assign that as a task to any of their boards. Instead, what we're going to be looking for is direction from City Council to do something in a more concerted, comprehensive manner by looking at the, say, 6 to 10 boards that may be interested in changing their versions of Chapter 2 and working with the legal department to do all of that work, including updating your bylaws and so forth at once. We'll be able to move the project along on a better timeline as it will be prioritized for the organization as opposed to being another task for a department. Welcome.
Any further discussion or questions? So we can move on to the next item. Item C is membership discussion on the possible appointment of an MSD representative to UFC.
And I apologize, Chair, so this is a discussion that you can have regarding any of your open membership seats. My update is on the MSD appointment. I wanted to let the board know that I spoke to the 3 city appointees who are on the MSD board, and they said at this time they would recommend not trying to fulfill the seat again until council has directed staff to make more comprehensive potential changes to board structures or memberships. And they noted that they will stay tuned with what's happening with this board, but declined to look to appoint someone.
And as far as the membership of UFC, we have, my understanding is that we have 3 vacancies. And the co-chair, Karen McNeil, and I, Vice Chair Karen McNeil and I have decided on our nominees for those positions, and I will send that to Alex when the appropriate time is.
The most recent list from Keith, our forester.
I believe I may have it.
Okay.
I think Alex sent it to me last week. So is there any discussion? Oh, I did want to ask the question, how will we bring people aboard without a regular meeting?
It is a great question, and we are working with the city clerk's office to answer that again in a comprehensive manner, because there's going to be quite a few boards that have new members.
Discussion or questions? So the next section are updates and reports that will largely be given by Stephanie and Keith Aiken.
Thank you, Chair. Again, my name is Steph Monsendahl. I'm the Planning and Urban Design Director for the City of Asheville. We appreciate your time today to have a conversation about the Recovery Board framework and how the Urban Forestry Commission fits into that framework. So a lot of this, I ask you just bear with me. You probably know 99.9% of this by now. We have 4 recovery boards at the City of Asheville that are being stood up in November. These 4 boards are going to be aligned with Council's recovery priorities. The names of those boards are up at the top right here. We anticipate that they're going to have regular scheduled meetings until the end of the fiscal year. So June of the next fiscal year, that's June 30th, 2027. The existing advisory boards are going to be on demand or as needed. They're still needed to provide expertise and community input. There's just going to be a very specific way or process in which these boards are going to be convened, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And you know that there's some boards like Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Historic Resources that either have been reactivated or have been actually meeting quite frequently during this time period. Each of these recovery board will have 11 members. Up to 7 from each are going to be appointed from the existing advisory boards. It can be the chair and vice chair, or the chair and vice chair can designate someone else to do this in their stead. Just like our other as-needed recovery boards, they will be supported by city staff. Those remaining seats, the 4 to 5 remaining seats, are going to be the subject of a council vote this coming Tuesday. So they'll be looking at all of the applicants. The deadline was at the end of September. They'll be looking at all those applicants and filling out those boards. Pretty much, these boards are going to operate very similarly to existing as-needed advisory boards with staff. They're going to be streaming. They're going to be subject to open meetings laws. And there's also a much more direct connection with recovery boards and council committees than was possible with the sheer number of regular advisory boards. So with these 4 recovery boards, they will be aligned with the council committees and be having some consistent dialogue. You can see here in the next slide that the Urban Forestry Commission is providing appointments to the Infrastructure Recovery Board and the People and the Environment Recovery Board. And I would like the chair to share who's going to be on those recovery boards.
Now, Karen McNeil will be on People and Environment, and Chris DeFiore will be on Infrastructure.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So what will these recovery boards do? They're going to be providing input to City Council on policy recommendations that promote a strategic rebuild of damaged infrastructure with a focus on long-term resilience. This is the Infrastructure Recovery Board scope specifically, focusing on the water system and the resiliency built into that water system. We've all become quite the experts in water in the last year. Looking also at the infrastructure and our parks, greenways, and recreation lands, prioritizing large projects, looking again, matching the need to do some repair with the desire to go to the next level and not only be resilient, but find ways for us to incorporate additional community visions into projects that are a little bit older. So then partnerships and funding is also going to be part of what that infrastructure group looks at, specific to our infrastructure plans. The People and Environment Board is going to be looking at how we respond to climate-related disasters. So think neighborhood resiliency hubs. We'll be looking at our natural resources, so environmental sustainability, our riverfront, our riparian areas, our tree canopy, all those are pieces of our natural resources. And then providing advice and supporting City Council by looking at our existing resources and tools to support climate vulnerability considerations. Additionally, there's a second one on this one, neighborhood level resilience and preparedness. Again, neighborhood resiliency hubs are a piece of this. Supporting residents that are recovering from disaster impacts. I think many of you know that there is a long-term recovery support group around Buncombe County, and they are working on a variety of different efforts to support people where they're at after the disaster. And then another part of this, the people section here, is helping City Council understand how residents can feel informed, engaged, and connected to recovery resources themselves. I wanted to point out that in our audience today, we have several members from CAPE, our communications public engagement team. We also have the interim director of sustainability, and those folks are going to be working. You're both pairing up, right? to support, yeah. So there's going to be a lot of support for this board that's already in, that you'll work with them quite a bit. So next steps. Next Tuesday, October 14th, there's going to be appointments, as I mentioned. In November, we're going to be convening those boards and giving them that onboarding and orientation that's really necessary. And there's going to be breakout groups for each of those boards to start talking about what their work plan looks like. And I would assume that each of those boards is then going to decide if they are going to start meeting immediately or in January. So probably a first meeting in December or January for some of these boards. I will note, it's not on this slide deck, but that if you watch the Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting that is upcoming, that Kira Boulin, who's here, will be presenting on the work plan for the People and Environment Group. And then we'll also have Chris Corral, while you're not involved in this, it might be of interest, Chris Corral, who's going to be leading the economy boards as a staff support. He'll be sharing what the draft work plan looks like for that group as well. So there's a variety of ways that on-demand or as-needed boards who are only going to meet when assigned a task can be assigned a task. And we're not only going to talk about that process today, but I'm going to assign you a task today, and you are the very first board to get a task assigned. Top-down assignments happen when council committee or department directors identify that we need to reactivate an advisory board and get them to help with a specific time-delineated task. So for each task that we do, you'll see in the resolution, you have to point out how long that task is going to, how long you're engaging with that advisory board for. So this is really helping us complete work that are on our department work plans, or for council, get the kind of advice or input that they need on very specific items. There's also a bottom-up way for members of an advisory board to basically ask if they can get assigned a task. And so you can have someone say to Chris, hey, Chris, we think the infrastructure board should be working on, should activate us and work on a task that looks like, how do we get popsicles sold between the month of April and May? And you, since you're a member of that recovery board, might take it to that recovery board, and they can have a conversation where they might advise a council committee to assign that kind of a task, right? So it's just bubbling up from you guys through to council committee, and then they can do that. So similarly, you can just ask your department lead, which is me for this commission, hey, we think we should be working on something. And then you can ask the entire city council to just say, we would like to be assigned a task, here's what it looked like, can you deliberate on this, and they can choose. Here's my caveat. This is the first time we've ever really done this, so we don't have like a very, very clear process. We don't have forms for you to fill out. Communication is going to be key for us moving forward so that you guys feel like you're doing meaningful work and that council can stay apprised of how you're being utilized during this time. So we'll just be doing a lot of conversations with Zoe and me and Keith and others. All right, so we've gone over most of this. Your next steps basically are you might be assigned something, a task. I'm going to give that to you in just a minute here. But to be clear, again, the advisory board will then conclude and be as needed or on demand again until you receive a new task. So we're anticipating that the Urban Forestry Commission may meet 2 to 3 times in this coming fiscal year to be able to support completion of the Urban Forestry Master Plan. It is critical for us to be able to share a lot of information and engage the People and Environment Recovery Board, especially with that work. And we're going to have a good amount of cross-conversation between that board and this board when and if we do activate you for tasks. Any questions about all the administrative piece of this before we talk about the task itself? We are going to have Keith give you an update on what's been going on with the master plan, and then we'll talk about the task. Yeah? Okay.
Chair, commission members, Keith Hagan, Urban Forester. Planning. So yeah, at September 8th this year, we restarted the master plan officially project team. Since that time, we've, mainly been working on the next stage of election, which is going to be the public engagement period. And so we've been, getting the website ready to go, talking about the wording and that sort of thing. We've done the survey. We're talking about the different meeting dates coming up in the spring and that sort of thing. We've been working on the master list, which you all have populated previously, pre-storm. You added some names to that. We're going to have you, as part of the task, pick that back up. And Steph will talk about that here in a second. But, other than just kind of, getting the little odds and ends and, doing the surveys and that sort of thing, it's pretty much, that's kind of what's taking up our time right now. We haven't really made any monumental decisions. We did start setting dates for this fall, which will be roadshow dates, which we will also ask for your help in as well. That'll mainly be going, going out in the community and doing presentations, rather than the community coming to us for the public engagement periods in the winter. We will actually go out to them. And what we're really looking for there is small groups to engage. That could be big groups as well. But once again, Steph will talk a little bit more about that in the task. We've also, probably the biggest part of what we started was, all the important magic number, that post-storm analysis. So we did a contract with SkyTech LLC out of Chattanooga back in August, and they are trying their hardest to get us some new updated imagery. They were able to task the satellite back in September, and then we kind of sat in line waiting for other people and waiting for the satellite to move into position at the most ideal time when the sun's at the highest point in the sky so that we can reduce shadows. And just this past week, we had to discontinue that imagery. Or the process in getting that imagery. However, they are going to work up a mosaic for us based upon several different satellite pictures that were taken this summer as well, before we actually signed the contract with them. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to get an equal or better image, well, maybe not better, but an equal image to fulfill the contract that we signed with them in August. Like I said, that's going to be a mosaic of, several different satellites and several different times. So,
Keith, can you explain for everybody why we pulled the request to do the imagery right now? Can you, just for the record, can you make it clear about the leaf coverage and why you're using prior, yeah.
So, essentially, as you know, as we get into fall, and I think that really cold snap that we had in the beginning of August, kind of threw some things off a little bit. So the reason why we stopped having them try to find new imagery is essentially because we couldn't get a clear sky. And second of all, we were starting to lose all the leaves and the red buds and the tulip trees and, the black walnuts, those trees that drop leaves earlier because we wanted those, wanted the full canopy. We just didn't want 95%, that sort of thing. So that's why we stopped the company and told them to hold off, and then they came up with a different solution for us. And once we get that imagery back in, we will actually take that data and enter into another contract with them where they will be able to do a canopy assessment for us. It's a really brief one, so it'll just kind of give us a snapshot of where we are post-storm. And then we will also back that up with some training for staff so that in future times, we will only have to buy the imagery or purchase the imagery, and then we'll be able to do all the assessments and the analysis in-house. And I think the website, yeah, I believe the website is up and running. That was our goal today, is to get the website up and running for the Urban Forest Master Plan as 1 p.m. today. That's up. That is ashevillennc.gov/trees. We'll get you to the website for the Urban Forest Master Plan. And then there is a timeline on there as well as when, we're proposing for the big public engagement periods with the stakeholder groups coming up in February and March. Those will be invite only and based off the master list. We'll have a virtual engagement late January, early February for the public. And then we'll have a big public workshop in March as well. And then based upon all those workshops as well as the road shows, we will, if there's still a population or someone that we feel like we didn't reach enough, we will break out and have focus groups. Focus groups will mainly be like, small groups. That'll be in April, and that's only based upon the information that we collect in January, February, March, and throughout the road show.
So can I ask a question about the SkyTech imagery? What are you wanting to show with that, and is that for the public?
Yeah, so we're essentially wanting to have something to compare to the 2022 imagery. You'll notice on the website, we do have the current urban tree canopy plan posted on there. We also have the invasive study posted on there. Our inventory, I forgot to mention that will be starting back in January. And, but yeah, so we're gonna capture the same land classifications that we captured in the 2022 data so that there's comparable data there. But, what we were really after was where we are in this point in time, based upon the 2022 data. The 2022 data came back at 56%, 55.9% back in 2022, and that was based on the NAIP imagery. And in neighborhoods, I believe it was 58%. So citywide, 56%, neighborhoods, 58%. On the 2022 data. And then, obviously going to change, or it has changed. But, our goals, with the new imagery is to find that new number and give us a new baseline. And give us areas that we need to focus on. Lost the most. Anything else?
So what's your all's plan for getting feedback from technical experts in the area? So say folks that have hydrology or urban forestry or just different technical experts that we're lucky enough to have tons of those folks around.
Sure. So I think when you get the task and you start filling out your master list, you're going to see that we already have those people targeted on there. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. We can, invite them to one of the big workshops, the invite-only workshops that will be happening in February and March. Those are mainly for, industry folks, leaders in the community, folks that represent large populations. We do have an idea, so we don't necessarily have a plan yet, but we do have an idea to target like an academic group. So those would be, all of our professors, assistant professors from, universities and colleges around Asheville. So we started that list. I think we have 8 on that list right now. So those would be folks that we would go to for specific information. Some of them I've already started engaging with, but we would probably, move them to the focus group because I feel like their knowledge is going to be a little bit more than what we want during the stakeholder engagements coming in February and March. But yeah, we'll definitely, those people are pretty much on my speed dial, a lot of them. So, but yeah, so those will mainly get tabled over to the focus groups. We'll, get feedback from them based upon our other public engagements, for, areas that we may not be missing or maybe be a gap, that sort of thing.
Has there been early discussions about wildfire prevention as part of the urban forestry master plan?
Fire prevention?
Wildfire prevention, correct, yes.
Yeah, so, we haven't gotten that depth into it yet. We're just mainly doing, working on the public engagement period. So that's something that, we'll look at when we start making our goals in May and June, after we analyze all the public engagement data. And then when we start writing the plan, that's when we'll start engaging some of those folks. It's just my understanding that Asheville Fire Department already has a wildfire plan for the city of Asheville. On the city, or Asheville Fire Department for that information, but we will also engage with our, North Carolina Forest Service folks if they're still around. Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly put that message out there. I mean, if you looked at any of the posts lately, the Forest Services, North Carolina Forest Service is really putting out the message and pumping out that message. Eco Foresters as well is getting out that message. So, we're certainly, we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. We're, go on the coattails of those folks. They know best. They are the most trained, and
Just an update from, there's community wildfire protection plans being developed right now out in the Piedmont for Buncombe County area, and so it'd be worth connecting with those folks and integrating that into what the North Carolina Forest Service and the RCDs and all the organizations that are coordinating that effort. So I would love to see these discussions be had now. I would highly recommend before the engagement's happening, because I think we want to bring as many of those organizations in as early as possible to help guide the process, given the urgency of that risk.
yeah, I mean, that'll happen eventually. Whether, what the timing is on that. Right now, we just want to get into the engagements. We don't necessarily want to cause alarm right now. I mean, when you mentioned fire with all the stuff that's on the ground, people are going to get a little worried, and we want to make sure that we have the right messaging out there and that we're ready to put it out there. But yeah, so I mean, we'll certainly, I know there are communities working on plans right now, and we will certainly take that into engagement and follow up with them, and Fall Creek is doing a
I want to come back again. I hate to flog it, but I want to come back to this canopy estimate. I think that particular figure is going to be a baseline for a lot of communication. And I'm wondering if the city is going to work with other entities who are working on finding out what that number is to make sure that the right number is put out from the very beginning, because I know that after the fire, that 40% figure was put out, which was not actually accurate. And so I think it's really important to the urban forest master plan to be as accurate about what we say about the present urban forest canopy as possible.
Yeah, I've actually been spending a lot of time on this. I've been, on the horn with SkyTech, talking to them, emails. I've engaged with Dr. Norman. I've engaged with Dr. Stiers out of Western Carolina University. She does a lot of remote sensing and that sort of thing. Certainly have put the feelers out there, and, we want to get it right. I mean, I'm not going to come here with some random number that doesn't mean anything, because I know how much. I've already told SkyTech, I was like, this is probably going to be your defining moment. To the, once again, like you said, it's going to be a baseline for us.
Well, I see it as part of an establishing news release for the whole forest master plan. I mean, that's just sort of how I envision that. So I think it's really important to make sure that it's verified by other people and that other people accept it, because it may not be what the public expects.
Correct, yeah, it may not. I mean, it could, just talking to Dr. Norman, I mean, he was kind of throwing numbers out to me, and I was like, that's not what I see when I look at the maps and the aerial imagery. Not that kind of loss, but it's from someone who doesn't analyze that data often or know how to do that. I can only rely on the folks who are.
Keith, I wanted to ask about the tree inventory. Going to get restarted in January, and before the hurricane, we went back and forth about having a root collar inspection being on the checklist of what the teams are looking for on each tree and the condition. Has that been made part of the checklist? Checking on the root collar condition of a tree, whether or not it was buried at planting or overmulched.
And checking on the root collars, that is in the attributes.
Great.
So, we're going to do a condition where it actually sits, and then, how deep it is in the soil as well, whether it's, overplanted or underplanted, too deep, that sort of thing. So they're going to make notes on all those trees as well.
I've maybe going back, maybe more of an administrative question for all of this. So there's the steering committee of 7 members of all city staff, correct?
So we did tweak the public engagement a little bit, and what our hopes are, we were originally going to try to engage the People and Environment Recovery Board as the steering committee rather than coming up with our own steering committee and trying to narrow down the names. But as we were told by sustainability, they won't actually be having their first meeting until November. So we have pushed that back to potentially late January or early February to actually do a presentation for the Environment Board to get their feedback on the public engagement period and the plan. They will be instead of doing the steering committee like we had planned before, we're going to go ahead and use the.
So my question is, I know that we're creating this as we go. We have these new 4 boards. There's a steering committee for the Urban Forestry Master Plan. The Urban Forestry Commission is not invited to the meetings. Contractor, correct?
Of the.
The Urban Forestry Commission members are not. None of us are invited to the meetings with urban.
That's correct, yeah.
So I guess my question is, and this might be for both of you all, it's probably more of a philosophy question at this point as we're clearing these processes out, is the Urban Forestry Commission is about to be assigned a task. I saw that has to do with outreach. What is our philosophy moving forward with this if we're assigned a task and then aspect of that task, or some of if we disagree with a core piece of how that task was originally designed. So now if I'm part of that task force, I'm now implementing stuff Yeah, what does it look like? What does communication look like if there's a disagreement with how that task was designed?
I think I can answer it. So the task today, you're just gonna communicate with whoever assigned you the task, right? So the task today is being assigned by the department director, and we have time for you to discuss the task and for you to, let me know if I'm, not hitting a mark with something, or if there's something additional that you all think that needs to be added or taken off. So we can have a little bit of a negotiation. This task specifically, I did have other staff members from at least 2, if not 3 other departments review it and edit it so that it would be in alignment with our work plan for the urban forestry master plan itself. So we could just discuss it.
I think Chris is bringing up something that we had discussed before the hurricane, where, the city is implementing an urban forestry master plan, and the Urban Forestry Commission is not being part of it. And, we all had our thoughts about that beforehand, and I thought we had came to a conclusion that we were going to be included in the process of that before the hurricane.
Correct, yeah. So, we had talked about, the Urban Forestry Commission, on the project team, and the project team is an administrative process, and to my knowledge, no other commission has ever sat on their project team. So, just, by, going with tradition and, policies, I guess, with the city, that, we determined that, it's logistical-wise, if we have to come to folks who aren't in the thick of it the whole time. Like, if we were to, if you were on the project team and we're like, hey, we need to know in 3 hours, what this, what your response is. It's waiting for that response and then try to make a decision or try to work around the problem that we have. It's easier to do that when you have everyone here at the city. They're a phone call away, they're a chat away, they're an email away. It's easier to get feedback and process that in a fast way.
I would like to answer it in a little bit of a different way and say that we hope that you recognize that you are involved in the Urban Forest Master Plan. You're going to be the first advisory board to be assigned a task because we think it's so important that you participate in these next steps. And to note for everyone, including folks who might be watching this, that this project has generally been on pause since Helene. And so the work that has been done has been pretty administrative. Our team kind of getting organized on the side while we're working on recovery projects, lining up resources and sustainability and planning and urban design. Our contracting and finance folks, people from communication and public engagement that are just doing that administrative or operational work. So there's been, and then you can fold in what Keith was saying is that there have not been times during this past year where we have really needed to get any kind of expert advice, but the time is now. We do need it now. And that's why we're asking you to kind of re-engage and perform these tasks with us.
And I think sort of how it seems to me is that when we wrote the grant for this project, we had visions and goals. And it seems like some of the process has moved forward, and we don't actually know if those have been if those are part of what's moving forward. Like, when you ask for input on the roadshow, I have no idea what the roadshow is.
It hasn't been created yet.
Okay, well, that's not clear here. And what isn't clear is whether we will have any input into the kind of information that will go out to the public.
That's great feedback. I appreciate that. Generally, note that the contract with Urban Canopy Works requires them to create the roadshow. And certainly, we are open to hearing from folks what they think should be in it. But the gist of this is that this is an informational or educational presentation. There's not, we're not looking for specific feedback in the same way that we are going to be looking for feedback this spring. These are like data boards almost that the consultant will produce. So we're happy to answer like specific questions, or if you're like, this would be a great opportunity for you to also share this X information. We're here for it. And the communication, just because you might be as on like an as-needed board, there is nothing stopping you, and in fact, I highly encourage the board members to continue talking to the chair and vice chair, and for the chair and vice chair to continue speaking to me and Keith as staff and funneling us information or questions, and we will ensure that we'll also do the same. So we can send, if there's a significant change in the scope of work for the contract, we can update you all to say, hey, we can no longer do X because of Y. Those are types of things that we would always communicate with you.
For some further clarification, at what date, I know we don't have exact dates set, but at what point in this process will Urban Forestry Commission members, and I would also add in here like local nonprofits that have really intimate work around the same trees sometimes that the city's managing. What point will they have direct contact with Arbor Pro and Urban Canopy Works to be able to share their needs and opinions and contractors?
You want to go back through that, the spring events?
Yeah, so what we'll do, we're coming up with the roadshow event. So what we're going to be tasking or asking you to do is actually support us through those processes. So, doing help setting up those events, being there to network with folks, answer questions, make sure people are getting their surveys in, make sure they're informed. Also going out and finding us the organizations that want to host a roadshow. We're going to look to you for that information as well. And then once we get it into spring, we will do another task in January or February, I believe. And with that task, that'll be a more in-depth task where you actually be facilitating these small groups in these stakeholder workshop groups. Based upon the criteria that will be spelled out by Urban Canopy Works.
I think what I'm hearing is that we'll be called upon to help host roadshows and facilitate that and provide and do informational presentations. I think what I'm trying to say is that there's certain stakeholders that are also in the management role or have technical expertise that should be involved a lot sooner and in a much greater capacity in the decision-making of this process. Nonprofits, folks on this commission that have been involved in making this happen in the first place, should be called upon in an earlier stage, much earlier stage in the process, so that they can help influence it all. Because trees are not just managed by the city, right? Like it's all of us, and the nonprofits and us play a huge role in that. And if the decisions are made without those folks involved, then I think those folks have to do a lot of extra work to change things, a lot of extra work for the next couple of decades to like band-aid stuff together to make it work for different organizations. I think a lot of that extra time and extra money being spent to fix things could be saved if those groups are brought in initially. And it doesn't have to be for every meeting with the project partner, but I think those voices need to be heard now, because there's little things that the different organizations all are aware of that are just a different perspective on managing the trees than the city. So I would highly, highly recommend that a small group of the folks that are managing the trees and the folks that helped create get the urban forestry master plan running, their input is session for those folks to come together and be more involved earlier on.
So my response to that is, currently right now, next 6 months, we're going to do public engagement. Those conversations that you are referring to probably won't happen until July or August in next year. All these nonprofits, and we have them specified on the master list, they will be able and they will be invited to the workshop groups. So we'll get their feedback and, you know, and get their input then. So we're not, I think you're kind of jumping forward or, you know, trying to, I understand you want them engaged, but we're not in that process where we're making decisions on the plan.
I have a quick question, though, kind of echoing what Chris has been saying, just as far as the opportunity to provide feedback. So by that point, if we're looking at like a timeline of, you know, next summer for people from Greenworks to be involved, for example, or any other nonprofit, is there still a chance to provide feedback then? Because I'm assuming by then all the data will have been collected, the data analysis will be done, and there's a lot of expertise and, you know, opinions on what data do we need as a community to manage our urban tree canopy in our peri-urban areas as well? And, you know, will we have the opportunity to say, you know, we appreciate being presented with these data, however, we would have liked to know X, Y, or Z as part of this?
Yeah, so you are correct. By the time we get to summer or late summer of next year, we will actually get into the figure out the different parts. After the data collection, we will actually go into goal setting, and that's where we're going to put on that as well as what we hear from those public engagement periods that will mainly be happening for nonprofits in February and March. If that kind of answers your question. What I'm saying is we'll have a 3-month period where you'll be able to engage and provide feedback and, you know, plans that you may have in the works or studies that are going on and that sort of thing, so that we can collect all that data and bring it into one, one collection point so that we can analyze it. And then once we start writing into the plan, we can start taking these ideas and further expanding them into a program.
If you guys don't mind, I just want to succinctly try to summarize a couple things here. One is I'm hearing that the commission is providing advice to staff to say the earlier the better when it comes to engaging groups that also manage trees. Yes? Got it. We're going to get it down. What Keith said is also important to know, and it's just saying that we have certain groups and consultants performing certain tasks, and so we're going to have to wait until we get out of data collection and into more public engagement. But I think what we can do is to see if we can optimize the public engagement so that you feel like we are hitting the nail on the head when it comes to making sure that there's early input from those groups. What we'll need from you is an outlining of exactly who those groups are, and that is something, Chris, to your point, that we can add to the task list today. We can say another piece we want is for you to outline exactly which organizations, to your best of your knowledge, should be consulted earlier than other organizations, individuals, or general public. Does that make sense?
Here, I have a question, if I might insert myself to make sure I'm getting my notes correct. We haven't heard the task yet, but there's some questions from the commission that I'm hearing that are the same as last year, that are very parallel to what's happening with the transit study and the transit committee. We want to make sure that people impacted by the decisions, and in this case also the natural environment, have seats at the table before we get so far in the weeds that we miss the opportunity to collect the information that we need to make informed decisions. Because that is consistent with what we were talking about in 2024, I wonder if the next step of hearing what the task is could be next, and then there might be recommendations from this board, including a follow-up meeting, but it could be any number of things that the board might recommend to the council, but we haven't heard the task yet. Am I missing something?
I think what I've been hearing from AJ and Chris, yeah, I totally agree with you, but I would add to that without necessarily being aware of what data is being collected, some groups that would really benefit from having specific things targeted, you know, that would be important to know before the data is even collected. I don't necessarily know the specifics of that, but, you know, these groups that are, you know, major stakeholders in the area could have different ideas of what data to collect than what is being actually collected. Then you find that
And
out
we might
next
actually,
fall.
right,
Yeah.
it actually might be that we have all the data we need, but we would know that if we had the expertise at the table.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Would you all like to move on to talk about the assignment now? Okay, I'm going to stay right here while we're doing the assignment piece. So, as mentioned, we think you're an important part of the development of the Urban Forest Master Plan. And just as a reminder, we did try to hire a highly qualified firm who has produced urban forest master plans in places and have quite the experience about what that process should look like. The roadshow that has been being discussed is something that would start up in November 2025. The primary goals of that roadshow is, like I said, it's fairly educational, so it's about informing the public about this project, including the purpose of and the timeline for the project, clarifying for the public what data the city has and will later have, what we're actually collecting regarding the status of our urban forest. And at these roadshows, we also want to facilitate opportunities for key stakeholders to connect with each other, staff, the Urban Forestry Commission members, so that we can kind of have that healthy, vibrant level of community engagement throughout the process. And as a reminder, this is kind of our kickoff with the community. That's really what this is. Even though the contract has been signed for a long time, we have been under this pause. So here's what we're looking for. We're looking for you guys to provide us input on the following items. So first of all, the goals that I just outlaid there about the roadshow, are there any other goals that staff should be considering? We want you to take a look at our preliminary or draft stakeholder list and tell us what individuals or groups we should add to this list. I put it as what groups are important to prioritize and why, but I also am willing to add another point in there that might say, provide us specific information about who needs to be spoken to in advance of the creation of any focus groups. The roadshow support, we're going to need a volunteer, at least one, to support each meeting, helping with the setup, guiding groups that are tabling, and we do want to have that opportunity for those community organizations that I think you're mentioning. Providing hard copies of a survey that's going to be released, and we're looking to see if folks can say who would be on the call, and that we could say you would be able to at least consider, knowing that we don't have the dates yet. And then we need help with the social media campaign. We intend to create some reels and some posts, and we need a few of you to say you're willing to appear on camera, maybe also for some interviews and talk about things like tree planting and pruning and why this plan is important, including all these other goals, sub-goals within it. Maybe even, while not listed, I do think that fire hazard mitigation is an interesting piece. And by the way, Buncombe County is updating their hazard mitigation plan, so it's also another opportunity to cross-connect. So, excuse me. This task, we are hoping that you can perform this task in about a month. We are looking for you to be able to meet outside of this meeting and a proposed meeting the first week of November in order to confer with each other. Right now, with your membership, As long as you meet before October 28th, your quorum is 4 people. So groups of 3 or less can meet and work together to answer any of these questions. We are not so concerned about how you want to break this up, who works on what, as much as making sure that we answer any questions you might have and keep that communication link open during the rest of this month, and provide you, we got Carly's here to provide you with any legal guidance around open meetings requirements. We're hoping that you can either use the slot that was your regular meeting time, which is on Tuesdays. It'll be that first Tuesday, the 4th. But it could be any time that week if there's a time that's more convenient for you. And as I noted earlier, this is task 1.0, and what this is going to do is help this group define how you actually participate in the roadshow itself. And then we will be considering reconvening you in January to help with the next engagement task, which are these larger focus groups and larger public meetings throughout the spring. And that would be your report out as outlined in the resolution. What materials do you need? We will see what the consultants can provide. I don't know that their timeline is, they might be able to provide you a narrative of what will be included, and we will, I don't know that they're going to have those finished by the first week in November, but we'll provide you with as much information as we can. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. And Chair, just note also, if you have specific suggestions for what that looks like, for what a big deal might look like for the road show, just share them with me and Keith. With me and Keith? Mhm. That's exactly why we're asking you to activate now to give us information on those items. Yep. Would you, you guys aren't going to be voting on this today. There's no vote. So it's basically the chair either accepts the assignment or doesn't accept the assignment. And I would like to know from the chair if you would like to add, I noted that I could add under B, stakeholder outreach, what groups are important to prioritize and why. I could add not only the one item that I noted, which is which groups manage the care and feeding of our beautiful trees and need to be consulted with early. I would also, since you've noted that there are certain places that you wanted to visit, I could add in there which places would be a priority for us to have a road show at.
Are you referring to Appendix A in our documents when you talk about the request for the task? Because maybe we could put that up on the slides so that everyone in the room knows what we're
Yeah,
referring
Drew,
to?
can you see if the task is linked in the agenda that's in this presentation or the other agenda documents, and just get the task? There's two
So-
documents. There's the appendix, which is the outline of the task. Do you want that, or do you want the first?
Maybe something, I'm just thinking that if folks are watching from home, they might only see this task slide and not know what we're referring to, but I'm
Okay.
looking at a request from a director that includes a 5-point item, that one. And it might help add to the conversation. If you're watching from home, this is on the Urban Forestry Commission's documents, which are publicly available on the city's website.
Yeah, thank you, Councilperson Roney. It's a good point.
One question I had was on B, the stakeholder outreach, relating back to our, what we were discussing just before this, with the outreach being to those organizations being understood to be before the data collection starts, or is this going to be like all outreach to those stakeholders?
So if I heard that right, you're wondering about the time period that those organizations are going to be, yeah. So that will be when we do the bigger engagement periods. Remember Urban Canopy Works proposed doing 60 to 100 people in a room at one time. I think we're going to probably scale that down just because of the capacity that we have right now, and we'll have some other public engagement periods from other projects going on. So that, like I said, that will mainly happen in February and March, where, we will engage based upon the master list that you're going to, populate after this meeting. And, the project team is also, adding names on that. We'll pick the folks who have the most interest in the plan, and then we'll come together for 2 workshops, one in February and one in March. Yep. And then also, once again, if we're missing, a certain, group of folks, whether that's, nonprofits or that sort of thing, we have already, I can tell you that, Mountain True, Riverlink, and Asheville Greenworks are already on that list. So those will be a definite 3 people for those big workshops. But if there is something we're missing, we can have those focus groups in April as well. And, if we need to have special meetings with groups, one-on-one, certainly by all means. There's nothing really binding us to the amount of meetings that we can have. But, for, Urban Canopy Works, they will be following their, protocols that they've followed, and time-tested planning to, produce these bigger events or these specialized, engagement events. But by all means, if I got to go to Asheville Greenworks and, either do a road show or just kind of, get feedback from them, I certainly want to do that. I'm like I told everybody, with the road shows, I don't want to leave anybody out. My goal is 40 road shows and between November and April. That's a personal goal, but that doesn't mean I only have to engage with people during those road shows. I'm going to engage with people wherever they're at, and wherever I'm at. I did a presentation at Central United Methodist Church this past Sunday, right after church service. So, wherever I need to be to get people informed and engaged, I'm certainly going to do that.
A clarifying question for letter D, roadshow support. Will the contractors be available, or were they planning to be at any of the roadshows? Like one person from Canopy Works or Arbor Pro to be at specific roadshows?
So the Urban Canopy Works will not be at the road shows? Is that what we're asking? Yeah.
Request them, or like, can we request someone to be?
So they're kind of bound by their contract. And that is, certainly wasn't something that was in their contract. In the old contract, we were going to do some of those focus groups at the mall, which, you know, we've heard from everybody, and we're not doing those anymore. So, you know, their engagement, they are going to do, they had planned to come down for 3 engagement periods, and they're still going to come down for 3 engagement periods. They're going to, you know, present to the recovery board in January. They're going to do the February meeting, and, well, actually, the February and both the March meetings as well. So they'll be down here quite a bit. But as far as the road shows, that was more on our end. We weren't certainly, you know, they weren't proposing that we go out and do 40 speaking engagements. That's something that we're taking on, I'm taking on personally, because I want to, you know, get as much feedback as I possibly can.
Again, I circle back to, like, I feel it's really important that local nonprofits that manage trees have an opportunity to directly with Urban Canopy Works. Such a critical piece of this all. Really, I'm just kind of like stuck on that. None of this, like, opportunity to check in with each other. Again, bring it up to y'all, like, what's our plan for?
Yeah, I mean, that'll happen in the virtual engagement, which is our first engagement coming up the end of January. They will facilitate that, and they'll be here for those February and March meetings where all those organizations, you know, the Home Builders Association will be there, you know, engineers, folks that do business here in the city of Asheville that, you know, relate to trees and that sort of thing. So, you know, we expect a very lively engagement in those 2 months. And Urban Canopy Works will be facilitating both of those. So certainly those groups will be able to engage with them at that time. Hmm?
So I'm just going to back up here and say it is usual for an advisory board to provide staff with advice such as things like you should have a road show. The road show would include information, what data we have, what data we seek to provide, what our goals are for the urban forestry master plan. But we usually don't have members of our boards and commissions review city or consultant-made products and provide comment on edits. So so this is just kind of a level of trust that these are professionals who have developed these types of materials in other places. And I'm not opposed to sharing some of those materials with you all so you can, or to share materials that they have done in other cities so you can get an idea of what we're going to be sharing with the public. But I stress that, like, the purpose of these is to inform and engage people and to get them prepared and excited that things are going to be moving forward. And if you think that there are pieces of information that should be shared, that you can always let Keith and I know what kind of information you think meets the goal of getting people excited. And it's implied in here, but we haven't discussed it much, that during these road shows, we would also like other organizations to come out and potentially table, like Greenworks, to be able to talk about the other information that's happening. That's one way of making this a little bit more of a dynamic presentation. I understand entirely your concerns. And I just want to continue to help illuminate for both staff and members of the advisory board, just like our roles in this process moving forward. So I think that there are times when we will absolutely ask for your input on some presentation materials to get your feedback on them. And that's just a professional evaluation we're going to make when we think that those materials, if we have too many questions about them, we would always ask you. So does anybody have any more questions about the task itself or the time laid out to complete the task, how you can meet? I know, Zoe, you asked about resources, and I said if we have information about the roadshow itself, like we'll send you a narrative description of what that would include. The stakeholder list, absolutely.
Yep, tomorrow.
Okay, so that's a great question. How do you know if you have enough time to complete a task? You guys can have we could move onto the informal discussion part of your meeting right now. That allows all four of you, since you're here and it is a publicly advertised and streamed meeting, to talk about how you want to do this task. If it turns out that during this time period you say, wow, 2 people got the flu, we don't have time, you can negotiate with me to extend that time frame. As a reminder that those time frames are important for 2 reasons. The first reason is that it's set out in the council adopted resolution that we have to have a time frame. The second reason why I'm asking you to move so quickly is because the road shows are coming up in November. So, this is where we're at. And we absolutely understand that in an ideal world, we would have liked to have start working with you on this earlier, and we just really needed for the process for the recovery boards to be stood up and for us to understand the entire framework of assigning tasks before we could get this moving.
And I will add to the road shows, we're just not doing them November, December. Those will run all the way through the end of April, all the way through the public engagement period. So if there is a group that, may have heard something or attended one of our other bigger engagements, they can ask for a road show for me to come and speak to them one-on-one or personally or that sort of thing. So we're not going to shut it down at any point in time until after the public engagement is over.
Would you like to move into the informal discussion section before? Okay, thank you.
Talking on the microphones now about whatever we want to talk about.
If you have a
What's going
plan,
on?
yeah, what I was trying to get across is that you might want to discuss any plans or ideas you have for tackling this task and how you're going to get together, who's available, if people, some of you may have a greater interest in some of those items than others and might want to volunteer to coordinate a response. But I would assume that the chair, and unfortunately the vice chair could not be here today, will receive any information from you all. There'll be some kind of group report out, like I said, that first week in November.
Beth, can you just clarify for me again? Sorry, I want to make sure I've got it right. We can meet in person, but only up to 3 of us?
That's correct.
Okay.
Another clarification is, I know it was kind of brought up, what resource, are we being provided like more details on the master plan? Are we being provided tree inventory data that we have so far? Like all that?
You're
what
going to
will
be provided a list of the things that we're including in the roadshow presentation materials, and you're going to be provided a draft stakeholder list. So that list of things that would be on the roadshow materials, that will include, in that list, it'll say which data that we would be sharing. Stakeholder list is going to be sent tomorrow. Those are the two pieces of information that will be provided for you to be able to respond to the 5 items that we've asked input on. You already have like the first item says roadshow outreach goals. What additional goals could staff consider? You have some of the goals already in this document, so this is also a resource document for you. The draft stakeholder list is the resource you would point to for task B. For C, that's going to come straight from your own knowledge of networks, right, and contacts. The D is just your own availabilities for upcoming meetings, and you can be specific. Like I would suggest that the response might come in the form of a small spreadsheet that would list of each of the members, and it would provide whether or not you're available on weekends or nights or weekdays, whether or not you would prefer to work with Keith and volunteer to help at specific, like I would prefer to do only church meetings. I would prefer to do groups with like specific environmental stakeholders. I would say that would be a great way to organize that data. And then similarly, I think the response for the social media campaign might look like a list where you just have all of the members of your group and you indicate whether or not they're willing to participate in this social media campaign or be interviewed on air. I think if the more specific that you can get, like, hey, I'm Krista Fiore, and I'm fine with being utilized in some of these reels, but I would want them to be specific to my area of expertise, which is X. And I would like to not partake in on-air interviews, that type of thing. Just be real specific about what your availability is. And we would like, so what I'm being clear about is that literally, I'm not asking you to create a very structured official report, but I am asking you to create documents so that we can constantly refer to them. Create or update our documents.
What access will we have to staff during the process? What access will we have to staff? during
Any
the process?
question you have, you can email it to Keith and Keith and me.
For the roadshow support and social media campaign, could those be supported by volunteers that are not on the commission?
We hadn't thought about that. We had thought about just using Urban Forestry Commission members in the social media reels with Keith.
But we're certainly open to anything that you
Local
bring forward.
celebrities, council person perhaps.
Well, I was going to say, I maybe, I might have drank one too many coffees today, but I think this is all pretty doable. I don't have too much resistance to it. It's good to engage. And
Creating spreadsheets, documents, typing stuff up. Go ahead. All I do every day.
I currently can't think of anything else that we would necessarily need from them, but it seems like if we think of something, then
I'll just be honest with my feelings about it. Like, yeah, I think I feel excited. I feel like hard. Like we want to get the public excited and partners excited. If I'm not excited, how am I going to get them excited? a lot of trust that needs to be rebuilt, right, between the commission and staff. There was some things that happened before the hurricane that weren't, with people that weren't sitting. A lot of trust needs to be rebuilt, and I think like I don't have a ton of information. I feel like we're not invited to meetings with the Canopy Works. I feel like Canopy Works black box that's not allowed to talk to anyone staff, and like that's probably not the intent of any of this. I'm not blaming anyone, but it feels really difficult for me to go out and put my reputation on the line to get other organizations get excited about something that I know like pieces. I was an organization, so I would want to be talking to the people who are doing the project and the people who are the staff and Canopy Works. I wouldn't be talking to me, who's just like this person. I don't love the position I'm in to put this on. I'm happy to support, but I feel like I need a little more to like get excited about this and to rebuild the trust to do it after this. And I think the big ask that I have is like, I'm gonna get together environmental organizations to learn about this. I want them to be able to ask questions to me. I'm not gonna be able to answer half those questions, and it's not gonna look good for us. I don't know, I'm just really, I don't know, like, I'm happy to help out a little bit, but like, if I was given a little, if we could find a way to be a little more flexible with like Canopy Works and like their interaction with the public, it would make a big difference. I would like to be excited about this. I really, really want to be
I
excited
would
about
love for you to be excited about it too, right, Keith?
Correct.
Yes, we want you to get excited about it. And Chris, I do understand what you're saying, and I admit that I think about it differently. Here's what I think about. I think that these events that we're talking about with the road show, while I totally know what you're saying, like it would be great to have Canopy Works there so they could answer questions about how they're performing these tasks. We hope to do that, and our primary goals again are to create an understanding that we're about to kick off all of this data collection and analysis. And while we didn't put it down here, what's really important is people tell us things that we don't already know, like on a local level, that may be more important for us to carry through the plan long-term than it is to Canopy Works. So Canopy Works is going to get what they need this spring. I 100% would like for you to think about, and Zoe as well, because you mentioned it, if Canopy Works can't be there, because they don't, we just don't have enough money to pay them to come to a lot of different events. What is it that would make it exciting? What would make this exciting? And you don't have to answer it right now. I'm just saying I would like for you guys to share that kind of information with us. Great. Hmm? What c- So, to be clear, you all can provide some suggestions and bring some resources to the table. So you mentioned Mountain True. It would be great for us to understand when Mountain True could potentially table. And if Asheville Greenworks can come and they can do a demonstration about fall tree planting, That would be great for people. We've talked about giving ceilings away. We've talked about all different ways for people to have other reasons to come out than just to do something that they could quite honestly do online, right? This is about community connection. People being able to talk to each other and make that network stronger so that when we do that feedback loop in the spring, that it's not coming out of nowhere.
I have two things. One, what would make me excited is collaboration. It's a collaborative process, and this doesn't feel like collaboration. And with me or with the nonprofits in the area. The other thing I want to bring up is that the examples that are being given is not what I envision the involvement looking like. Like, I'm not envisioning Mountain Tree giving a tree planting session. Like, we're talking with Urban Forestry Master Plan, we're not talking about trees, we're talking about a forest. We're talking about managing a system. And we need to design systems to manage the urban forestry system. And I want to hear what Greenworks and Mountain True and Bountiful Cities, I want to hear what they have to say for their needs so that can inform how we build these systems. I want to hear what data they want collected so we can build these systems. So that's how I want folks to be involved. I want to be able to share information about from my experience, about what systems have worked in other cities. And so it's a system building process that needs to be collaborative. And if I felt like it was being collaborative, if that was being put on the prior, like, not that I don't think we're going for that, but if I was feeling that those would be more collaborative, I would be excited, and I think more people would be excited about this.
Thank you, Chris. I also note that we haven't shared with you, our entire communication and engagement plan, and that we have not actually kicked this process off. So I'd ask you to give us some grace, and let's see what we can do together to make this project better than what you're anticipating.
Zoe? Zoe, I just want to share my experience because I think you're right. One of the things that I remember is when I went to the Asheville Greenworks event at AB Tech, where they were showing the satellite, y'all were showing the satellite data. It was sold out, long waiting lists, people standing in the back. Like, people were excited to learn about our systems and what they could do about it and to gain understanding. And so I just wanted to speak from experience that was exciting and it was impactful, and it lingered, like the community's still talking about it.
To Chris's point, I mean, would there be any consideration to meeting with stakeholders before commencing the roadshows?
So I'm going to say, we're going to take all the things that we've heard today and we're going to debrief. And we're going to be talking about how we can improve our community engagement process. But our community engagement process, as we continue to know, is framed by what we can pay for within the contract and some of the timing for our contractors and subcontractors to be available to work with us. Keith pointed out that there's things that we can do outside of that. Staff can do some things outside of that. But if you just, I think that we can provide you with some additional information. Either I can have Keith and I speak with Zoe directly, or at your meeting in the first week of November, we can report back to you how we've incorporated some of the feedback that you've given us.
Yeah, it seems like there's some hesitancy around the roadshow and kind of signing up for things that we don't present, and I totally understand that. So, and as well as, using the stakeholders as launching pad to make this more exciting, more collaborative, before the roadshows even start. And so getting more here on the roadshows from those organizations might be helpful. Provide more, community drumming up the bushes, beating the bushes and getting people out through those roads. Just something to consider that might make this.
Well, I also want to note that we're really interested in the roadshows and being able to meet people where they're at. So if there are already events that your organizations or organizations that you're involved with are having throughout this fall and through January, please consider tacking this onto it, okay?
Steph, did you say earlier that you had like examples of the materials that had been put together for other cities?
He can show you like
Okay.
what some other cities have shown and some presentation boards and that type.
That would be nice just to have as like a,
Okay, so it sounds like you all have a plan to address these items. As noted in the documents, Keith is going to email you with a little bit of an availability poll to see when you can meet. We're going to start with the traditional meeting date, and then if we can't get a decent group together, we'll pick another date. We're going to need to probably pick that date before those 3 new appointees are onboarded officially. So they're going to be making the appointments on the 28th, so it's the second Tuesday council meeting. The 14th is the appointments for the recovery boards. The 28th is the appointments for these boards. So while you're going to have those seats filled and we're going to ask them to attend that special meeting in November, all I'm trying to say is those folks won't be onboarded, and we ask that because your quorum is going to change pretty much on October 28th or 29th, that you don't have any, if you have any questions about what that quorum looks like, just ask us. It should raise, so it should be even more protected, right? With all that number, yeah. So keep having meetings with 3 people regardless. And Zoe, I can have a session where we take those, like a virtual meeting where we take the new folks and onboard them a little bit before your special meeting. The 28th of October. So sometime between 28 October and whenever you guys have your next special meeting, Zoe, it would be good if you and I and Keith could just meet with those new members online and make sure they understand what has happened or what they're walking into, and then we'll have your special meeting. If they can make it, they will be. All I was trying to say is that we're going to build that date around your availability and not the availability of people who won't be on board until the 29th. We'll hope that they can make it. And if you guys don't have any questions, that concludes our part of the presentation. I think all you have left is public comment and the adjournment. Yeah, and just, okay, thank you.